What's up, y'all? Welcome to episode 66 of Convos in the Pedicab. I'm here with my buddy Jason Vaughn. He is the policy director for the Texas Young Republicans. We did an episode a few months back. It was kind of cut short because we had some camera and film issues. It was just a big giant mess. She was super patient. We talked about a lot of stuff, but we still got a lot more to talk about. So, as promised, we are back with part 2 in the middle of the special session. We were gonna do this episode at 1 o'clock, but apparently you had you had lunch with the governor.
No. The governor's some folks from the governor's team. Unfortunately, governor was not there. I wish he was. That would have been fun. But no, just some of his team. They invited me to lunch. Just folks I've gotten to know during session, during the campaigns and all. Wanted to go talk to them about what was happening, and it was a lot of fun.
How's lunch? So what did y'all talk about?
Mainly just, in general, look what session looks like. We didn't really do any plans or anything. It was very casual. It wasn't like an official anything. This was friends hanging out.
It's a pretty interesting session, though, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you got to build those relationships.
This is a really pivotal, I think, session.
I think this is going to it's going to determine a lot on the how the primaries and all. I don't think there's any risk that the governor personally loses the election. This is not me taking a position.
No, I disagree, but keep going.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation, but I don't think there's any real risk, but I do think it definitely will help shape the conversation for him, because we had one of the most conservative sessions we have ever had with the heartbeat bill, with the gun, with the constitutional carry
is good. That's good. Okay.
Yeah, I know we disagree on the other one, but for the base,
we're going to actually talk about the heartbeat stuff, but I want to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about that. Okay.
That's a long conversation.
Sure, we can talk about it for a minute. I'll share my concerns, but let's keep going with the conservative stuff.
But no, I think we had some really good stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of our there were some things that, especially with criminal justice reform, I was really hoping would have gotten done. It did not. A lot of things fell through in the Senate. I was very disappointed in that. But I'm still hopeful. None of it's on the special session call right now, but we are having conversations with the governor about adding some of that, because he can add things throughout the special session.
Is it a month or 3 days or what?
It is. It's 1 month, but they can get done early. They can get it as long as they've got everything done. They can go home. Technically they may go home anyway. But
the voting stuff is super important.
The election integrity is extraordinarily
really
important.
There's a lot of misinformation going on about that.
A lot.
Like, I actually read the bills because of all this stuff, but they're talking about how it's they basically are saying that it's a giant voter suppression bill, and that it's disenfranchising black people from voting because of the one of the primary things that they're citing is the souls to the poll stuff.
Yeah, and my understanding is that the 1 p.m. thing is not going to be. I don't know.
Well, it just says that the polls open at 1, right? Or it closes at 1, or what?
I don't. I'm sorry.
I think it says that the polls open at 1, right?
I can't, now you have me confused in my head.
Okay.
This is not the bill. This is an important bill, but it's not a priority bill for us. So
the voting stuff isn't a priority?
It is a very important bill, but our convention names priority bills, right, for Young Republicans.
All right.
So I have to focus primarily on those. I am very supportive of what we're doing in the elections bill, but I have somebody on my team that's really following and working on that.
Sure.
So
what are the priorities? I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good. So we had constitutional carry,
okay.
Pro-life issues. We did obviously very well in those two. Cannabis reform. We got a small medical expansion, not what we wanted, but something. And that's another one we're asking the governor to do. Executive powers, reining in what executive, what the governor and local mayors can do.
Yeah, but that's not on the special session, though.
That is not. No, I'm talking about in general. So our convention obviously was for that covers session and then throughout.
Right, but did the governor's executive powers wind up getting limited?
No, those bills both died. So he could put him on there, and actually, because it's not about him. I actually have no there's differences of opinion I have on the way the governor handled things for sure, but and I know that's a big issue for a lot of folks.
It was a big issue for me. Like 3,000 businesses don't exist anymore because.
Look, I'm an entertainer.
Yeah,
my business is still being very affected by everything that happened. I have to look at what would have happened whether it took government to do those shutdowns or whether people would have done those voluntarily, because still a lot of places are voluntarily still shut down.
There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of people, like a lot of. There's also a lot of people that would voluntarily not want to frequent certain spots because they're worried about getting
absolutely.
Sick. Like, there is
you were not going. I'm an entertainer. Like I said, I do large events are my bread and butter, libraries, stuff like that. So especially, I think that you probably would have seen my business shut down anyway. Yeah. Unfortunately,
people wouldn't be booking you, right? But I'm saying, like, people still came in droves to Walmarts and HEBs and all these other
priority places they needed to do. Yeah,
they still came in droves. It didn't stop those spots from generating business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I certainly I disagree that the governor did that. Thankfully, the actual shutdown was fairly short. There was, for a lot of businesses.
It's only like a month, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of then there was the whole, and I get it. These are not things I personally want to defend at all. I'm just saying I would have liked to. I understand there was a predicament, that there was something that was going on we had never been through, and I'm trying to come through it with whoever was in charge was going to go based on a lot of with what information they had, with trying to do the best they could do in that situation. And that's all I'm saying is I'm not saying I agree. I'm not trying to defend any of those actions.
He could have been a lot worse.
But I would
Abbott could have been a lot worse.
I think the biggest challenge Abbott had in general, and I actually think they probably would have gone further, but I think what should have happened is that the legislature should have been brought back after about a month for them to make those decisions.
I agree with
that. I think if it had been more spread out across where and that was the main thing we wanted, was that, and we still would love to see a bill that says after a certain amount of time, that if we are in an emergency situation, that the legislature is brought back to make any decisions continuing on executive orders. I think that would have been the way that would have put the governor in the best position. I still hope he adds that to the special session call. I think
are
especially,
you pressuring him to do that? When you were with his team, did you talk about that?
We talked about that. Now we were primarily with campaigns. I was primarily with the campaign side. So, but I have talked to his team. We've sent letters. We're promoting it online. These are the things we are asking our members to call on, to add that on to the call, and then so we're.
What are the hours that people are meeting, and how can people actually everyday people get involved to say, hey, we need to curtail the governor's ability to make long-standing, broad executive orders for a prolonged period of time. Not even so much because of Abbott, right?
Absolutely.
But because you never know
I'm terrified
you never know what the state could turn into 4, 8, 12, 20 years from now. We have to keep the balance of power in check.
And that's been my messaging. This is not about Abbott. This is about planning for the future in case something like this happens again, where it's somebody that I trust a lot less than Abbott. And you have that. If you spread it out, you get people that are honestly just closer to the people. They know their communities better. With the representatives and the senators, so they can do that by first off calling your representatives and just say, hey, we'd love to see you encourage the governor, because they have a voice with the governor as well. But calling the governor, messaging, you can tweet at him online. Be very, everybody wants to be rude. They think everybody wants to make the governor and elected officials their whipping boy. And I understand that.
But that's also your job. That's why you don't go into politics to be nice to you too.
No. I completely understand. But the problem with wanting to make people your whipping boys, you better have a whip.
That's true, and also people are more willing to respond. You're more likely to attract a bee with honey than vinegar, right? There is that component of it.
These are human beings. If you want to have a conversation, if you want them to do what you want, either you need to have power over them, and you have one vote, maybe you have an influence over a few votes, but to really change a statewide election, that's difficult for a lot of folks to have that kind of power.
Yeah.
So one of the and I'm not saying, look, I
actually agree with you too, because I have a lot of very Democrat. I had Bridget Shea on. I disagree with her about a whole ton of shit, right? But I got her on because I was nice to her. And I was, you know what I mean? Like, I was
Yeah.
nice to her and I was respectful, and like we disagreed on a bunch of stuff, and I explained why I thought she was wrong, but I wasn't rude. I didn't yell at her. When I posted clips on Instagram, I posted clips to try to make her sound good, and you know what I mean. So like,
And I think I will say my biggest success as an activist was having a Twitter conversation between myself, one other person, and Terry Canales, and it was on the subject of red light cameras. When we banned red light cameras in Texas, Terry had a hearing. Sorry, Chairman Canales had a hearing, and was not planning to have a vote. It was not going to go forward. There was a lot of backroom issues, and we had a conversation about facts. We had a conversation about what it meant and better ways to keep people safe, such as longer yellow lights instead, because a lot of times they'll put those cameras in and then shorten the yellow lights.
yeah, it's a way to extort money from people. It's fucking, yeah.
It was, and by the way, if you're still in an area, they have no legal ramifications if you don't pay those tickets.
Okay.
Just so you know. But anyway, having a cordial, very friendly disagreement publicly on Twitter, and he came back and he said, "Look, you guys have changed my mind. You've caused some backroom conversations to change. We're going to have a vote on this."
Nice.
That is my biggest success, and it happened because I was willing to work with somebody that's in a different party to have that conversation. You can call people out. I have called people out in my time. I have said I have deeply disagreed with people. There are people I will not work with or will not be voting for, but I will try to work with anybody.
Yeah.
Because that's how you try to get things done. And if you want to beat people up, you've got to be able to. There's got to be some way you can actually succeed in doing it. And I've determined that a lot of people's explanation or definition of being grassroots is being angry, and as angry as I am, and unsuccessful. Because if you're successful, that means you have given over, you have compromised somehow, and you can no longer be considered grassroots.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you have to work with other. But part of being successful is cooperating with others.
Yeah,
and then
finding
all of a sudden you
solutions.
cooperate with someone on something, and now someone else will just say, "Oh, you're compromised. You sold out," and that's all. That's a little.
And I am a
that's
proud,
toxic.
Republican. I've
But
never
there's also a
voted for a
difference-
Republican in my.
there's
I've never voted for a non-Republican in my life.
Sure, but Jason, there's also a difference between being a Republican and being a conservative.
I think my record is very conservative. Like I said, you look
And
at.
I think that before I go on any further,
Yeah.
I think there are things that like it's okay that you should be very conservative about, and there are other things that maybe you become very liberal about. And I think that's okay to have a balance. But I think the main thing when it comes to politics, in my opinion, is being a genuine human being that people know what to expect from you.
Well, and I think
Does that, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
For me, a primary definition of conservative needs to be, get the government out of my life as much as possible.
Okay. So that being said, and I want to talk about the voting stuff.
Okay.
But with this when you say get the government,
I knew that'd give you an
no, but
opening.
when it says like, hey, get the government out of my life as much as
Yep.
possible, like, isn't the whole telling a woman what to do with something in her body complete interference by the government and the opposite of what you're saying?
It's a big libertarian issue, right?
Does
I
that mean, you know,
understand
like,
this.
that's-
I know. And this is one of the reasons. Let me ask you, when does life begin?
I don't know. It doesn't matter to me because it's not my life and I have no control over it. And it doesn't affect me.
But scientifically, it's very clear when life begins. I would say, right?
When you're born.
No, life begins when you have a unique DNA. If we consider bacteria and microbes on Mars life,
Sure. Okay. Then
Okay.
I guess. Okay. Then
So-
according to that logic, it begins at conception. I get
Fertilization,
yes.
yes.
Whatever. I get the argument. Okay. Here's my concerns. Okay. So my thing right now, and here's the biggest thing that I have. The biggest concern I have right now is that
I'm
right
getting
now
eaten up,
with
so if I'm
this,
scratching a
that's
lot,
right.
it's because of
with
that.
with this virus that we have going
Yep.
on. It's pretty apparent that right now, with the censorship and
Yep.
free speech and some of these vaccine mandates that they're trying to push through, maybe not so much here, but in other countries or whatever it is, right? There is a legitimate war going on against human freedom.
yes,
And you got to do whatever you can, especially if you're a conservative in this day and age. You got to do everything that you can to protect human freedom, even if it's something that you are extremely opposed to morally. And
But
that's in my opinion, that's literally where I draw my line. You know, like
No,
you have I'm sorry if I'm like going on a rant,
No, you're
right?
good.
But like what's going on with the lockdowns, with the mask mandates, with
Yep.
the fact that that people, if you allowed them to, would try to force you to put an untested substance in your body that you
Okay.
have no idea what the hell that shit does to you. You want as many people to be on board with medical freedom as possible, and when those same people who are big supporters of medical freedom when it comes to vaccines and vaccination requirements, all of a sudden go off and say, "Hey, we don't want you to have an abortion under any set of circumstances. We're going to tell you as a female what you can do with your body, and we don't give a shit about what you have to say." You're literally disenfranchising an entire segment of the population that would otherwise should be supporting you when it comes to medical freedom. Like, it's disenfranchising people in the fight for medical freedom, which is the most important fight that we have right now going on, man.
But here's the thing,
you get what I'm saying, though, right? Like,
and that is, so what we're doing is we have two things that are butting heads against each other. We're dealing with medical freedom, bodily autonomy, and we're dealing with the right to life. Those are two areas that are kind of butting heads in this one instance. So where I think that the government has the few times, because the role of government is extraordinarily limited.
all right.
Hold on, let me.
I'm listening,
hold
but I
on.
got
You went on
something
a
to say
long
after-
rant.
I did,
You went on a long
I did.
rant. You gotta let me.
All
You gotta let me defend my position if I'm gonna.
Go for it.
So they have the one position they have is protect the rights of every single human being. That includes and must include the right to life. Because if we agree now that life begins based on science, because you can look at it through science, philosophy, or religion and philosophy, pretty much same thing. They can. I think those are two very poor choices to determine when life begins. So you've got science. So science now says life begins at fertilization. So now you go from there. So you have to determine, all right, so when does a human life have the right of protection?
I understand all this.
We're now discussing when does they personhood. So we're discussing personhood. When in history has us trying to determine who is a person and that has rights and does not have rights? Does you see what I'm saying?
It makes sense, but I'm going to say another thing that I'm concerned with too.
You guys can't see all the bugs, right?
A lot of bugs. What I'm concerned with though is that this abortion stuff is all it's going to do is it's just going to disenfranchise certain people from voting for conservative candidates, and B, it's just going to empower like larger and stronger neoliberal democratic fundraising efforts as a way to destroy people's freedom. Like, that's what this is. It's like you're walking into a trap with this shit. Like, I get what you're saying, man. Like, I personally think it's extremely immoral to want to do this. Like, morally, I agree with you, man.
Yeah.
I agree with you fully. Like, from a moral standpoint, like, I would never want to, like, if I had a child, I would not want to go through that with me and my girlfriend. It's not something I would want to do personally. But if, like, some dude that I don't know who lives, like, 300 miles away from me does that, or some chick who lives, like, 300 miles away from me goes through with that, like, that is literally of no concern to me. That has no effect on me in any capacity.
So where in society do we stop that with? Then if you say, well, it doesn't affect me in my life, a lot of people weren't affected by slavery. A lot of people weren't affected by the Holocaust. A lot of people weren't. And I hate comparing things because I'm trying to be very cautious with that. But at some point, can we agree that if you are doing things to another, like murder, if you were killing another human being, do you believe that murder should be legal?
Yeah, unfortunately, we have a district attorney right now who doesn't.
No, I agree. But so what we're determining in here is whose life is worth where that law should apply.
I get your perspective. I think that right now, in the tense times that we are living in, with this clear war on human freedom, maybe a smart thing to do would be to just let that take a backseat.
So you're worried
now.
about the
I think that the smartest thing to do is just let that take a backseat. I'll tell you one thing.
And I will tell you though that this is the reason I am involved in. That is I'm very much in criminal justice. I'm very much in gun rights. I'm very much in all of these things. But the number one reason I am a Republican, The number one reason I am active is that I believe that if we cannot allow other human beings to, and that's actually why I got involved in criminal justice, by the way, because I realize if you're locking a bunch of people up for marijuana, you know what? Because I don't just believe, this is one thing that I want to be clear on, is that it can't just be laws. We have to also change culture so that somebody has other options, so that somebody doesn't just think that prefer, and I primarily believe in a lot of private options, but it's that you have other options. Most people don't want to have an abortion. That is not something any woman, I mean, like, yes, on a rare occasion you see somebody, I'm praising, yay, I have the, whatever.
Yeah, there's all that shit.
But the general person does not want to be in a position where they feel that they have to have an abortion, right? Generally speaking.
No, I agree with you, but wait, hold on, I got a
so
question.
I want a culture that says this, it's not only illegal but unimaginable.
Okay. I understand your perspective, because I think a lot of people, when they go, my girlfriend's sister had to go through that, and it was a horrible experience. Like, she, but at the same time, it's like, I would never want to be in a position where I'm like telling my girlfriend's sister what she does with something in her body. I could never see myself doing that. Like, I'm just like, I'm not a female. It's not my position to even have an opinion on this. Is my honest opinion.
Well, I'm not black, but I can have a position on slavery.
Sure, I get it.
Just because it doesn't affect you. This is actually,
But here's what I'm saying though. Like with this,
I'll tell you a story in a second.
No, and I want to listen. My thing is.
Told you it was a long conversation.
Yeah, it is. And I don't want to spend the whole time talking about this.
No, I got you.
Because there's more important issues that I want to talk about than this. But my thing is this, right? Like, it's way more expensive to give birth to a child than it is to have an abortion.
Though it is a big business. Can we agree on that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made by promoting abortion.
Yeah, I think that, like, subsidies to Planned Parenthood is kind of stupid. We should put money to other things, right? Like, I don't think that we would. Like, if I was a public official, I wouldn't use taxpayer money to subsidize abortions, right? But I don't know that I would ban it either. That's just my thought on it. What I'm trying to go with is
I am perfectly fine with you being wrong on this topic.
That's great. I'm fine with you being wrong on this. But what I'm saying though is that you have a situation where if you don't have like health insurance, it can cost like $10,000-$20,000 to like give birth to a kid, right? So if you're in a situation, right, where you don't want to have a child, where you're not ready to have a child, and you decide that you want to give the kid up for adoption, we got to make it a lot easier to actually give kids up for adoption.
And to adopt.
Yeah. And we also,
absolutely.
if you decide that you are going to have a child that you're giving up for adoption in lieu of having an abortion, your childbirth and your expenses should be covered.
I am perfectly okay with that.
And we're not doing that. So it's like when you don't don't do that, it's like
there
you're
are
just
a lot of
it's like exacerbating poverty, man, and that's not and then it's just like it's exacerbating poverty, and it's creating a culture where you have an overwhelming amount of fucking single parents,
say
which
we're
is
not
another.
Doing that. Hold on, let me say.
Are we?
We funded alternatives to abortion, $100 million in the budget to help people with that sort of thing.
All right, what does that do though?
There's a lot of it makes sure that women have proper health. We also, by the way, made sure to extend coverage for women that have had babies for 6 months after. I believe it was another for 6 months afterwards, and then another time. I apologize, I don't remember the exact time frame for the baby itself. To help with a lot of maternal. With a lot of the issues that happen at birth, but make sure that they have resources, that they can get the medical care they need, that they can get the resources for coverage for the baby for things like, again, it's not something I know everything that they cover, but I know it covers a lot of those things that you're concerned about, and we should do. If we can do more, I am all for doing more. But again, there's also a lot of private charities. I work with the Fifth Ward Pregnancy Center, in Houston. Wonderful organization, helping provide women with a lot of opportunities with the babies, for care, diapers, etc. Those are all things that I think we as a society, especially preferably in the private sector, but there are things in the public sector that can do that if life is the fundamental right that we are trying to protect.
Sure.
And I believe that is the number one thing that we should be focused on and should be doing. I mean, it is the very core and essence.
I think bodily autonomy is the most important thing that we should be focused on, because bodily autonomy.
But there's two bodies being dealt with here.
Sure, but
you're taking an active, and remember, we're not just saying this is not just saying where we're saying don't do something. We're this is taking an actual action to end a life.
Hey, I have two questions.
Yeah.
Pivoting away.
Yes.
I
still wanted to tell you a story, but okay.
No, sure. Okay. Question one. What has the governor and what has the legislator done about medical freedom and like banning vaccine passports and whatnot regarding this COVID vaccine and whatnot? One and two. Also, what are we doing about the number of Chinese companies, specifically tech companies, that are existing right now in Texas, and how do we limit their sphere of influence? Because I think those are those are huge. Like, considering what happened with this virus, those are like that's the shit that you got to be doing, and you got to focus on that. And you shouldn't even be doing almost any. Like, you should be really not resting until those issues get resolved in a lot of ways.
So on the vaccine passports, first off, the governor has said from the beginning we will never make them mandatory.
Okay.
And I want to be clear, I am very pro-vaccine choice. I'm also very pro-vaccine. You can be both.
Yes, I agree.
You absolutely can be both.
I 100% agree.
And you can also, but so they did that. Then there was a bill on it on other businesses. But he took an action to say that we will not have vaccine passports in the state of Texas. And then there was another bill on that as well. And then on the other issue of Chinese companies, I know that he's doing that. There's a social media bill or call up, and that you could probably make the argument that a lot of this could be done under the auspices of that on the call. So you
with the censorship on the social media and stuff.
So bills can only be filed under what the governor's done. And one we're actually asking for is, do you know what a Confucius Institute is?
No, explain.
It is where the Chinese government will pay for the for a school like UT or something to have a Confucius Institute, which is primarily used to then pass communist Chinese propaganda. This is something that several states have banned already. It is the priority of the college Republicans. On their behalf, we have taken it up as a request of the governor for the special session. That the college Republicans are doing a lot more work on this, but would love to, if we could get them, because we're bringing in communist nationalists. You ask, these are actual Communist Party members, and they are promoting communism in our schools.
Yeah, that's fucking scary.
In our public universities.
That's an urgent priority to fix.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely. And personally, I think to own, and this is not a position of Young Republicans. We have not taken an official position. This is a personal one.
Sure.
I think not only that if you're going to run a company, you need an American partner in the United States, and this is, and I think you also, if you're going to run it in the United States.
I also don't think that foreign nationals should be buying property in America either. That's another
thing I was going to say is you should not be a foreign national owning. China should not own a massive portion of the United States either.
Yeah, and that's becoming a problem. Another problem too is BlackRock
and
is buying up neighborhoods. Is there any way that as a government you could curtail and stop that?
It's not an issue I know enough about. I apologize. I don't want to speak on something I don't know. But I do think that we should, that the fact that the Chinese nationals can own more property than Americans in some states is and I'm not sure it's at that point yet, but it's getting
gross.
It's getting there, and we've got to be able to do something about that. And again, the part of the reason is that you can't go over. It's reciprocal, right? You can't go over to China and own property.
No,
you can't do that in many other countries. You've got to be.
But in America, you can you can be from anywhere and just start buying up swaths of land, and all of a sudden, it's oh shit! Now we don't live in America because the big money and the big
you can lease
from
the land, all that other stuff.
But
you've got to be, and especially you'd think they would be cautious about it here, where the average price in home price is now $550,000 in Austin.
But I don't really know if there's too much you could do about blocking somebody purchasing a single family home, right?
I'm not
the only
sure.
thing you could do is you can create zoning laws.
You got to be careful. We go back to liberty, human freedom, and there's always that line and that consideration of what should a citizen be allowed to do, what's a human right versus a civil right. I think that's important.
Yeah,
and that's something we confuse a lot as society.
I think also, man, they're trying to do this like Code Next stuff and urbanize everything in Austin. And what's going to happen when you urbanize things in Austin is that when you start rezoning single-family homes for multi-use, right?
Yeah.
If I own a home, I can't sell my home to a single-family owner because it's no longer zoned for that. So I have to sell it to a developer.
Yeah.
And like the likelihood of me selling it to a big developer or a bank or a foreign entity becomes that much higher, and I'm selling something that's mine to somebody that I don't want to sell my property to, and that's taking my right away as a human being. And that's who I want to sell my property to. That is dangerous. There's got to be a way.
The principles we're considering here and these are longer. That's why everything I'm saying here, I want to have these are things I'm still thinking about. That the one conversation we had earlier, that's one of my firmest beliefs. But everything else we're discussing on this issue is something that I think has a lot of like, how do you do it? What's the principles behind it? And
I think we're very in line on pretty much everything except for abortion. It's what it seems like. I think we're aligned on a lot of things. Except
I agree
for
with
that.
you. Yeah.
That's my opinion on that. What else were we talking about? So we're talking about this legislative stuff, right?
Yeah.
But do you want to tell me the story? Tell me the story. I don't want to like make you forget about the story.
No. Well, it's a story. It's why I say I got in politics.
Okay.
And so when I grew up my grandfather happens to be a KKK member.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, tell me this story. All right.
Yeah. See, I told you you'd be. So my my godmother is a black woman. She's not officially my godmother, but I call her the woman that I grew up with, my mom's best friend, all that stuff. So I'm very grateful that my mom greatly rejected that philosophy, and really, in a lot of ways, I was not around my grandfather a lot growing up, but because of that. But,
understandably, right?
Yeah. So, but one of the things, like I said, I grew up in a town called Lawrence, South Carolina, or Learns if you're local, and one of the things that they did was on the square, somebody built a redneck store. It's fine, love redneck store. I'm a redneck. I'm a proud redneck.
Do you play sports when you're younger?
No, please.
I mean, you could play like football. You're pretty big.
I'm a fat gay kid. No, I did not.
Well, all right. So we're gonna talk about that too. But
I did not.
Just because you're gay doesn't mean that you didn't play anything.
I am an absolute no. That is my safe space. No, I'm kidding. But no, I did not. But in this store they also put a KKK museum. Not just like this is the horrible history of the KKK, like this is the praising history. It was a whole 2020 episode, all this stuff. So on the square there's a rally against it, and then or for it that's a KKK rally on the town square, and then there's a rally against it. So me and my mom, I'm a little kid. My mom takes us to that rally. And I just remember, and this is why when you said it doesn't affect my life, it kind of matters. It matters to me.
Okay,
a lot.
Sure.
Because I had people we were the only white people there. There might have been like a couple elected officials, but really we were pretty much the only white people there, except for some lollygaggers looking on to see what's happening on the side of the square. But both the white folks and the black folks that were there came up to my mom and said, "Why in the world are you bringing your kids here? This has nothing to do with you." And I remember my mom very clearly saying, "It doesn't matter if it affects me or not. You stand up for what's right." And that's why it matters. That's why I'm in politics today. That is the number one thing. That's why I'm willing to take stands on criminal justice issues. I am not a criminal. None of this stuff affects me, but absolutely these are very important things to my philosophy and where I stand on. So not just that issue, but overall, and my mom is not political.
Hey, but did you find it like odd? Like, did you ever find it like odd being a gay Republican, or felt like you may have had like problems fitting in to Republican circles because of your sexual
orientation? I had one of our
leaders,
for the most part, no, especially in young Republicans. It's not really an issue. A few people have called and said they're not voting for me for chair. I'm sorry, one person has called and said they're not voting for me for chair because of it. I'm sure there might be some others. I'm running for chairman of the Young Republicans, so I'm running a campaign. You find out a lot more about what people think when you're running. But, overwhelmingly, it's not an issue. As you said, you didn't even know I was gay.
Well, I just don't care.
It's not something. It's not a lot of people want to make it your identity
I think
on both the right and life.
I think today's conservatism kind of cares a lot less about this
Yeah.
stuff than like yesterday's. Like, does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah,
think today's
no,
group of conservatives are just a lot different than yesterday's
There
groups.
definitely are people, especially President Trump. I will give him a lot of credit for changing that philosophy. Having Peter Thiel, an openly gay billionaire.
Wait, I didn't even know Peter Steele's gay.
Oh yeah.
Really? All right.
Yeah, openly gay billionaire, and introduce him at the RNC in 2016, holding up the rainbow flag. Naming Rick Grinnell and 5 other ambassadors as gay that were gay as ambassadors. Obviously the first ever cabinet member that was gay was appointed by Trump. It's just, he's from New York. He certainly
He doesn't
never
give a
cared.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because people called Peter Thiel like fascist and like it's neo-Nazi and stuff.
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
they
and
called
I'm
him
just like,
everything for that.
He's
he's a very
before
libertarian.
That, though,
really?
Yeah, that's what I heard. Maybe
I'm
I
a
was
big
wrong.
fan of PayPal. Obviously, I love PayPal. And 0 to 1
I like
is
Bitcoin,
great
and
book.
I like the idea of adopting something like that. But
yeah. No, but again,
I'm
I just
different on Peter Thiel.
I've
But I
had-
didn't know that Peter Thiel was gay. I didn't know that.
he's like me. It's not a massive.
Well, so is Tim Cook.
Yeah, nobody knew that either.
Yeah.
For a long, so he got outed.
He did?
Yeah. Somebody, I don't remember if it was a reporter or someone else, outed him accidentally because they didn't realize he was closeted.
I didn't. I thought he was always open about it,
No.
and he always used like being gay to just kind of cover for like whatever human rights abuses that Apple did with how they made their products in China. And
No,
did all
you can
that
go
shit.
look it up.
Like,
He'd been CEO for a while, I think, before it actually came out.
I didn't know that. Okay.
But having all that happen, like I said, President Trump made a lot of changes on that front. Still a lot of issues, with some folks. Still, a log cabin still gets denied a booth at the convention from the gay Republican group.
Yeah, I know about that because I know Cargill, and he was like, "I'm a log cabin." Republican."
Yeah, Michael Cargill, great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's
I'm
a
actually
big
doing Guns and Giggles.
a
I'm doing
big
a
black
stand-up
gun
comedy.
activist.
Yeah, I'm doing the stand-up comedy. My comedy debut, the 17th, Guns and Giggles. So I'm
Can you
excited.
think of anything more terrifying to a liberal than a
Guns.
big black gay gun activist store on?
Dude, but that guy's a pioneer too. That
He's
guy's been
amazing.
accepting Bitcoin since 2013.
He is like
I
Michael
gotta have him
Cargill.
on just to talk about that, right? Because I think
Yeah.
that, like, when it comes to like this racial equality stuff, like
Big
if there's
supporter
a
of
way
young
to-
Republicans.
Yeah, if there's a way to get more black businesses to start accepting and appreciating currencies, like you could really close a lot of gaps. I think.
Yeah. No, that's actually. You are big into that. I'd love to have a private conversation. Or I don't care about
I
public.
don't have that much.
I
of it,
just
right?
don't
like,
know.
I can't move to El Salvador or anything like that, right? But I think that
Belize.
it's something like that you got to accumulate. You
Yeah.
got to start accumulating, and you got to start adopting it. And I think that a lot of our affordability crisis and a lot of our affordability problems could get solved if people were able to pay their taxes in Bitcoin, and you incentivize that by offering a 25% discount if you decided to pay
My concern
with
is you start
Bitcoin.
really dealing with the government in it. And by the way, do you know the first campaign to ever accept Bitcoin?
Yeah, it was Abbott. We talked about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but
Yeah.
you're not really dealing with it. The government's just accepting it.
Yeah,
They're
but
not,
I
like, taking
still.
your shit or auditing what you have. You're just literally
Yeah,
going
still
and sending them
I get worried
this on a
about.
decentralized app.
It's something I still have concerns about. Just anything involving the government getting involved.
They're
in,
adopting it in Miami. I mean, there's no problems with it in Miami.
We'll see how it plays out. I would rather other places, especially on a smaller scale, work that out.
I think doing the tax thing, it will work out on a small scale because
Yeah.
only a small handful of people will actually do it.
I agree. That's going to be the biggest thing, and what's going to be interesting is my understanding of Bitcoin and for a lot of these things is the fees associated
It's
with.
pretty small. It's not too bad.
A lot of people say they're compared to credit cards and others, they're pretty
Yeah,
bad.
maybe so.
But it's not at
still,
scale.
But then you know what? It's still an appreciating currency. A and B. That becomes negligible if you're getting 25% off your property taxes to pay with that appreciating currency, and then the city or the state has an asset that's going to multiply tremendously based on how the charts look.
I think it's going to happen, but for it to be considered consistent currency, it's going to need to stabilize a little bit more. These big.
I think doing it now while it's
Up and
dipping and hiring someone from like CoinMarketCap to manage that budget could. It's an experiment that's worth giving a shot. We've done way stupider experiments, at least in Austin.
Austin
to
would
deal
be
with
a perfect
affordability.
place to do
yeah,
that.
we've done some really stupid experiments when it comes to affordability. So, adopting Bitcoin for property taxes is probably at the very, like on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of idiocy, it's at the very bottom of that scale when it comes to the idiotic things that the city of Austin has done.
No, that's
And
that is. Look, I mean, I am all, and that's what's one of the great things about what we're supposed to be able to do, and as states and as local entities in many instances, primarily as states, but to be able to do those kind of tests, to be able to do those kind of experiments at a state level. That's why you don't want a big overriding federal government.
Well, and that's the danger with defunding the police, because when you defund the police, the increase in crime, that's short-sighted. The real problem is that when you start reinstating the police force, it becomes federalized, and all of a sudden you take local.
Well, and we're
involvement
seeing
out.
that now.
Yes, you're seeing it in Maryland or in Baltimore. The mayor is not trying to hire more local departments. He cares more about talking with the ATF, and I'm like, yo, that's fucking horrifying. You should be terrified by that.
Well, I mean, the guy in charge of the ATF, or that they want in charge of the ATF, we know.
Yeah,
did Waco.
It's literally like you're trying to turn America into a totalitarian dictatorship, and you're doing it, and you can't do it nationally on a broad level because we have state rights and we have federalism.
Yeah.
But certain cities and certain states that are specifically liberal states, because not like liberal, not like the Democrat, not like being a Democrat makes you a fascist, but I think that party's gotten compromised to such a fucking horrible extent that it's just becoming very neo-fascist, and that's why it's like it's so important to keep Texas not Republican, conservative. There's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rhinos that say they're conservative and then they just do a bunch of globalist bullshit,
Sure,
and then
sure.
nothing changes, right? So let's talk about this voting stuff.
Okay.
Let's talk about this voting stuff.
The election, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about this voting stuff.
And again, getting into, I'm interested to see what comes out. The new, he created the new in the House. Phelan has created a new committee on constitutional issues that'll be handling it. So it sounds like it may. I don't know if Briscoe's still going to be the author of it. What happened? That whole thing has just been. The biggest issue is going to be the back and forth between the Senate, and they're all
because how do you know they're not going to do the same stunt that they did last time?
Oh, I fully expect them to try to do the first thing they're going to try to do is get Phelan and all of them to pass the Article 10, because that's the main reason they have to show up, is to get that done. They don't really care. There's nothing else on this call that Democrats care about.
Okay.
So that's the only thing that's going to keep them in
the critical race stuff they might care about, but we'll go back to that.
Stopping it, but they are promoting it, but not stopping, not reforming it like we want to.
3779.
Yeah.
But okay. Keep going though. I didn't mean
No. So the back and forth is going to be the big issue, and I think it's going to have to be very important to get this done, because and I will say first off, I think Texas already had one of the most secure elections in the country. But it doesn't mean we can't do more, especially with what we saw with Houston, Harris County trying to do last time with we're going to send you out a ballot no matter what. When look, I know that a lot of those places people may have been registered, may have not had. Everybody, this is my personal opinion. I think that it should be very easy to vote. As we've said, it should be hard to cheat, and I worry that we've got to make sure that people are doing it properly.
I also think that you may disagree with me.
Yeah.
But I think that you don't want to make it too easy, and I'll tell you why. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you want to make it impossible or do Jim Crow shit. Like I'm not saying any of that, right?
And it shouldn't be based on race or philosophy or anything else.
But when something is too easy, nobody sees value in it. Right, and if something like voting becomes just too easy, people are less likely to actually critically think about who they are voting for. And I think that when you have to make a little bit of an effort to go out and vote, hey, it's got to be done in person. You're more likely to go if you actually believe in the candidate, and it holds actual candidates to a better standard of how they're going to represent the people.
Yeah, and I think
does that make sense?
No, I think you make a lot of sense there, because I think it should be. Like I said, I think it should be easy for everyone. Everyone should have the opportunity to vote. It should be easy to vote in the sense that everyone can vote. I do believe people should know what the hell they're voting for. If you don't know what a judge does a district judge does and what they're in charge of,
don't vote for him.
Don't leave it blank.
Leave it blank, yeah.
And I don't care how conservative you are or how liberal you are. That's not that issue, because I know plenty of conservatives that could not tell you what the hell a precinct chair does, and they're going to vote for a precinct chair. Like
Because
that's
he has
how
an
we.
R next to his name.
Well, that's how we got Robert Morrow.
like that guy,
with the
though.
hat. Oh, he's a character, but I don't think he should have been county chairman. He had a great name.
Great name.
Robert
They wrote an
Morrow.
article about that name.
Robert Morrow is a great ballot name. But but nobody knew who he was. So I was like, all right, that's a good ballot name.
I wanted him to get on the school board. I really think that would have
No. Oh my goodness.
Robert Morrow speaks for the children, Jason.
Oh, can you imagine the children could never go to his Twitter account.
Yeah, but they'll be learning about JFK and stuff.
No, we're that is. Well, we will. We found another area to definitely disagree on.
Robert Morrow, dude. If Robert Morrow got.
If you want entertainment, watch television, not politics, preferably. Actually, politics is extremely entertaining.
It's like a sport, man.
It's insane.
It really is like a sport.
Yeah, I miss politics being boring.
Yeah, it's not boring anymore. Now it's like too real. But like, so what could happen to stop this election integrity stuff from getting passed?
They can walk out.
Okay.
If the biggest challenge they've got is they've got to pass Article 10 so that they refund the legislative.
So if they do that, then these guys can just do whatever stunt they did anyway.
Yeah, that's why if they're and I don't think Patrick's going to allow them to pass it out of the Senate until it's done and the other stuff is done. Originally, I assume that's going to be the deal that was made because I thought my original assumption is Patrick.
And they'll get all their money back, right?
Yeah. Well, and I don't want. I want to be careful with spending. There's some other funding issues on there.
Because that's kind of bad, man. When you're like defunding the legislator, like that's not a good look. Like primary or not.
I think
like,
it's the only thing he had to do.
Right, but I'm saying it's still optically going to look really bad for Abbott when he runs as a governor.
It would have looked a lot worse if we didn't get the other stuff. If we don't get this stuff done.
Yeah, it would have looked really bad.
Yeah, he's got to get election integrity done.
You have to.
Because the biggest challenge to the Republican election, in my opinion, is people wondering, is there a point in voting because they worry about their vote not mattering. We saw that in the Georgia race where 15% of Marjorie Taylor Greene's district did not turn out for the runoff, the highest percentage in the state because they thought the election was stolen. And I'm not saying it wasn't. I'm not saying there were not a lot of other issues, but the biggest issue, the reason that area that we lost the Senate is because people were so turned off by the fact that we lost the election and that they thought it was stolen that they did not turn out to vote. They shot themselves in the foot with that one.
I think it's actually better.
And so they shot the entire nation
better
in the
long
foot.
run for having the way it's set up because a 50-50 Senate right nationally makes it so like they still can't really do too much because there's a filibuster. You're not going to abolish it, and then you'll see Republicans taking.
God bless Manchin.
Yeah, well, either way, you still need 60 votes to do it anyway.
Well, some things there's a lot of stuff they've tried to do, where even with the filibuster, there are things that you don't need. You only
like
need
procedure and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the biggest thing they do is not those.
What I'm saying though, Jason, is that
but the biggest thing they do is
in
not
2022, you're going to see a huge reckoning, and it's probably going to be a bigger reckoning now because of how things are set up, you know?
Yeah, well, we're going to win that Georgia seat back for sure, and I think we're going to win the Senate overall.
That's 6 years in Georgia, you know?
No, because one was a special election.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's 6 years terms nationwide, but one was a special election to cover only 2 years.
All right.
So we will have that election again.
So Warnock, right? Yeah, that's Warnock.
I think it was Warnock.
Yeah, it's
Warnock. Yeah, because Purdue was but they have, but I think we're going to win that back. But the thing people don't think about is not the legislation that they pass. That is, and one thing that I thought Trump and McConnell, as much crap as McConnell gets, and Cornyn gets actually, but Cornyn is one of the biggest backroom people focused on this. Judges. Is that transforming and making sure we have a conservative judiciary was the most important thing, and losing that is scary because they can do that with 51 votes.
What do you mean?
They're all the votes to confirm judges.
Yeah,
is 51 votes.
Yeah.
So 50 plus.
But
Kamala,
we already have a conservative.
But
Supreme
they have
Court.
to keep. I'm not talking about Supreme Court. You've got to think of all the districts.
Oh wow.
And Trump did almost as many. Trump made a lot. He laughed about it a lot because he's like, wait, how many He thought they started with 0 because obviously the last administration had filled them all. No, he got like 500 judges or something that they actually confirmed. I mean, that was the biggest win of the Trump term was the judges, not just the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's probably a good thing considering what's happening right now.
Yeah, you've got to have conservative judges.
We need a balance.
That's the reason that we need to take back the Senate is to make sure that we're getting balanced
right,
judges.
But you're going to do that, though. The only thing that's going to stop you from taking back the Senate is cheating. I really feel like
I agree.
I feel like
I agree, especially with the way Americans are right now.
Yeah,
I think
the only thing stopping that is cheating. You got to make it really difficult.
Well, cheating, or the perception of cheating, which will tell people not to go out and vote. That is a big concern too, and it should be.
Perception of cheating.
Yeah, those are both major issues, and why this legislation is so important.
and also misleading misinformation from big media and big tech that will falsely galvanize people to vote for something that they're not really voting for.
Well, and the social media thing's an interesting one.
But okay, so with this voter stuff, they're saying it's massive voter suppression, right? And there are certain things that it is making it harder to vote. Like you're limiting the number of drop boxes, right?
Those are called mailboxes, dude.
Whatever.
I mean, like they call them. Oh, you don't have many drop-off location. Find a mailbox. If you believe that you can do a mail-in ballot, if you're so positive about it,
just find a mailbox.
Find a mailbox.
It's not that, but what I'm saying is that's not that hard of a. That's not that big of a deal. It just made it a little bit less convenient.
Yeah, until this last election,
it's not that big of a deal.
It was not an issue.
It doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. The other thing too is that if you're like a U.S. what is it like if you're a U.S. if you're like a new citizen or something like that, or if you're just applying for citizen, like you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you like just recently got your citizenship, like there are a lot more procedures and a lot more checks that you have to go through to like make sure that your citizenship is valid, right? Or something like that.
I don't remember that part. I apologize. I don't remember
Maybe
that
I'm wrong.
aspect of
Maybe
it.
I'm wrong.
So if you're a citizen, you should be able to vote. Okay.
Yeah. Agreed. And if you are disabled, they made it a lot harder for disabled people.
No.
Well, not that.
No.
Here, let me finish what I'm saying.
All right.
Let me finish saying. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but they basically made it so that
they did not.
You can't have somebody go in with you. It's a lot harder for someone to go in with you unless like you have to really conclusively prove that the like that. That was
all you got to do. No. Hold on. No. Here's one thing I know is that this is a very easy thing to do. If you are disabled, all you've got to do is go up. Somebody will either come out to the car or you have somebody go in. You bring the voting out to the car. They do curbside voting. Curbside voting, not drive-through voting, has always been a thing. It's very simple, and it's meant for disabled people. If you're worried, but it's very simple to do. I'm not worried. The biggest thing, the concern was drive-through voting, where you could have multiple people in a car telling people how to vote. And that sort of thing. That was the concern.
The other problem too is that you have like people taking buses of people from like hospitals or disability centers to go out and vote, and they're all like helping them. They're going in the polls with them and filling these applications out for them, and that's
you want to make sure that everybody's
right?
voting. The main thing is whatever's happening, and I don't know all the solutions, all these things, because you want to make sure all of these people have the right to vote, have the ability to vote, and you're not putting too many hindrances on them to get their voice heard.
I agree. No,
and I don't think
agree.
anything.
I don't think anything in that bill is doing that.
No, and nothing in that bill is doing that. The bill does not make it harder to vote. It does not do that at all, in my opinion. One of the things I really love in this bill is it actually expands the hours of voting and it standardizes them across the state so that you know that when voting is happening in every municipality.
What's the deal with the Sunday thing, though?
I don't remember the Sunday thing enough. I apologize. It's not. I don't.
I just want to know
because,
like I said, there's a lot of misinfo about this.
Yeah, and it's something. Like I said, I feel like I'd be talking on my ass, and I just don't want to do it.
No, you don't want to do that. But so what can you do or we do to make sure that this actually gets passed, right? Because we need honest elections, man. And this also goes to the local level too, because
the biggest thing is
if you don't have honest elections locally, you're going to have what you have. You could potentially see a repeat of what you have in Austin. That's dangerous.
Well, first thing is I would love for us to have. We need to get back where we have 101 Republicans in the House, so they can't even do this. Because that's the crazy thing. They want to get rid of the filibuster, yet they want to use the at the national level. But yet at the same time, they're trying to use the fact that we have to have 2/3 present to vote. So they're denying us a vote, saying they're protecting democracy. while at the same time trying to get rid of the filibuster at the national level.
Yeah, it's super hypocritical.
I'm just like, well,
But that's
what
why
are
you
you
can't
trying to
have
do?
people in power.
Yeah.
That's why you got to do whatever you can to like not. Oh, because I think that
And
when
I think we should have. I think
you
we should
gotta
have
prevent,
both. I
you
think
got to prevent abuses, and I think when one
Yeah.
person when one group gets too much power, they are going to abuse it. That's what you see on both sides of the aisles.
Well, you've got to have
balance.
you've got the purpose of having the filibuster is in extreme situations like that. But it was never meant that you actually walk out and do it.
Hey, last question before we
There's
wrap
a difference
up.
between allowing a vote and not having enough votes to pass.
Last question. What do you do? What can you do about like rogue DAs that don't want to prosecute like violent criminals?
To be honest, that's not an area I know a ton about.
You don't know anything.
Yeah,
Because you know.
I hate to end on a question where I'm
it's
like,
all right. It's all right.
sorry, it's just like,
all right. Hey, listen, man. We've talked about a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is pretty informative.
Can I talk
stuff.
about one more thing?
Yeah.
You know, you've got a great sponsor. Can I talk about your sponsor?
Oh, Loey?
Yeah,
Loey's the man. Yeah.
Loey's the man. I think Loey would be a great sponsor for our upcoming convention at the Kalahari, September 17th through the 19th at the Kalahari in Round Rock, Texas. Go on to Texas Young Republicans on Facebook to find out more about that. But I think Loey should message me on Twitter at Jason Vaughn and let me know, and then become a sponsor for that event.
I like that idea. You should send him a DM and make it happen.
Yeah.
But
Great
anyway,
guy.
Jason, thanks
Sponsoring
for
a great
literally giving us a way to get a hold of you. And thank you once again for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I feel like we talked a lot. We had a much more in-depth discussion
this is great.
than we did last time because we only scratched the surface in the beginning. But, hey, thank you very much, man. Jason Vaughn, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Dude.